Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and this is my March wrap up. So I didn't do a wrap up in February because time got away from me and I am just gonna move on. We're just not gonna go there. My favorite books of February though. My favorite books of February were The Elsewhere Express, which I gave 6 stars by Samantha Sada Youngbao. I absolutely loved it. I talked about it in videos. I read I Who Have Never Known Men, which I gave 3.5 stars, but honestly, I think that is one of the most interesting books that I've ever read, just for the fact that I'm still thinking about it. I'm still processing that book. I thought it was so interesting the way that it was set up and the connections, and it was so good. I also want to talk a little bit about Dollface real quick. So Dollface, this is by Lindy Ryan. I have never read anything from this author. This is a horror. It is described as a 90s Barbie style slasher. That's why I had to buy this book. I didn't talk about it in any videos because I just ended up reading it on the side, but I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars, or 4.5 stars, sorry. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I thought it was so good. It's such a buildup of suburban moms, PTA, that kind of things. And she moves in and she's not. Our main character, Jill, moves into this house with her husband and her son, and she's not your stereotypical suburban mom. She is a horror author, so she wears horror shirts, slasher shirts, like movie stuff, and she loves everything horror. And she moves into this house and she ends up having the neighbors show up at her door right after they move in, and it turns out that she is the president of the PTA, and Jill gets roped into coming to breakfast and then roped into becoming part of the PTA. But the crazy thing is that all of a sudden, all these PTA moms start either being brutally murdered or attacked and hurt, like, bad. And it is wild. We get perspectives from the attacker, we get perspectives from Jill, and it was just a really great time. I had so much fun with this book, and apparently now 90s Barbie style slashers are something that I am super into. There is another book that's going to be coming out, I don't even remember when. I'm gonna have to look into it, but it's basically, there's another horror book by another author that I'm now interested in because of Dollface, that it's, this girl is basically like transformed somehow or reincarnated somehow as a vintage doll and is trying to seek revenge on the man that killed her. And I'm so intrigued, and I'm gonna have to like look it up and put pictures of it up over, I'll put it over here, because I'm so interested in that book now after reading this one, like these crazy weird horror books. And so yeah, I love this. I give it 4.5 stars. I thought it was really good. I'm so glad that I loved it, because honestly I was really nervous because I was so excited for this book, but I had a great time with it. It was a lot of fun. And so yeah, I would definitely recommend this one if you are even somewhat interested in slashers, and especially the 90s like suburban mom style of slasher. It was a great time. Okay, so those are the books, the main books that I want to spotlight for the month of February that I know that I didn't so much talk about in videos as much. So let's get into March. So in March, I have read 8 books in total. Sorry, my daughter is playing with the Jumanji game. So you probably hear that music in the background. But in the month of March, I read 8 books. I read a total of 2,548 pages. I did not DNF at all in the month of March, which is really surprising. This is the first month I haven't DNF'd at least a couple of books. And I'd say I had a pretty good reading month. So the first book that I read was for Alphabet Escapades, and I read Julie Chan is Dead by Lian Zhang. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought parts of it were super predictable, but I ended up having a great time. And this book is following a girl who is really down on her luck. She's having a really hard time. She has a twin sister that she has no connection with, and when she gets a really strange call from her twin sister, she gets worried. And when she goes to look into it, she finds her sister dead. Now her sister is a really popular influencer And Julie decides that she is going to step in and take over her life. And because, I mean, why not? She's having a hard time. Her sister has things pretty easy from what she thinks. And so she's going to take over her life. And things spiral from there. Now, our main character is absolutely crazy and annoying, and I wasn't a huge fan of her, but I thought the story was really interesting. And of course, to actually step in and take over your dead sister's life, I think you'd have to be kind of crazy and unlikable. So it really worked. This book, it made me think of the premise of Bunny, even though I haven't read Bunny yet, but it made me really, really want to read Bunny. So definitely enjoyed this one, and looking forward to what other kind of doors this opens up for me in my mind that I was really intimidated about before. Next up, I read The Tusks of Extinction. This is by Ray Naylor. It's a little novella. It's like 100 pages. And I gave this one 4 stars. I thought this was exploring really interesting concepts. And it's looking into elephants and how they get poached for their ivories. And this book is about a woman who is a scientist. She's looked into elephants and trying to save elephants from being killed, and they bring her back, or her mind back, into the body of a mammoth. They have brought back from extinction to try and lead the mammoths and reestablish this species. And I thought it was a really interesting concept. It was very strange. There was, I think, too many points of view, but overall, I enjoyed it. There were parts of this that I didn't like how things were portrayed, and there were parts of it that I did. So overall, I ended up giving this 4 stars. I think this would be an interesting one to go back to and read again at a later date. And just now that I kind of know what's happening with it. And of course, now my battery's dying, so I'm going to change that, and I will be right back. Now I got the battery changed. I knew it was gonna happen. Okay, so the next book that I picked up in the month of March was The Astral Library by Kate Quinn. Now, I don't have that one here because I loaned it to my dad. My dad read it, finished it, and now my mom is probably going to read it. But this is Kate Quinn's most recent book. It is her first foray into magical realism. I did a video with this book. I talked about this book pretty extensively, I think, and I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. It is so incredibly different from anything else that she's come out with, but I feel like she had so much fun writing this book and putting pieces of herself into this book that I feel like that really came across for me in it, and it made me enjoy it so much more. So there were parallels between Kate Quinn and the book, and there was parallels between like things that she talked about were a part of her childhood, like Narnia and The Wizard of Oz being really big influences on her childhood, and she brought that into the book, and you could tell so much how much she is a reader as well as a writer and what she enjoys. And I thought it was a really, really great time. There was name dropping with Rebecca Yarros and Kay Jemison, and a whole bunch of other different authors, and it was a really good time. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I think my dad gave it 4. He wasn't as into it as me, but I loved it. So that being said, the next book that I picked up was The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. I was super nervous about this book just for the fact that Alex E. Harrow's writing, it always takes me just a little bit to get invested. Her writing, I love her writing. She's very lyrical, she's very descriptive, and she has a great sense of world building in any book that she writes. This book is following Sir Una Everlasting. She is a knight from centuries ago, and it's also following, what was his name? Owen Mallory. Now, Owen is more modern than Una, and he is he works for a museum. He works for a museum, and he is trying to find out the real story of Una Everlasting and the death of Una Everlasting and stuff like that. Well, one day he gets a book sent to him that is the death of Una Everlasting, and somehow that takes him back in time to where he actually meets Una Everlasting, and this is following that. I enjoyed this quite a bit. I gave this one 4 stars. It wasn't amazing for me. I didn't love it as much as I expected to for her writing. I feel like 10,000 Doors of January really just hit for me. And everything after that I've read, I've still enjoyed them quite a bit, but I'm only giving them like 4.5 stars. But this one I thought was really interesting. It got pretty repetitive at times, and I think that was part of it. I didn't really feel super connected with the characters, but I think that's partly because of the length. Granted, if it would have been any longer, it definitely would have drug on. So I did really enjoy this one. I'm really glad that I read it, and it's absolutely stunning. So I'm really glad that I'll be able to keep this on my shelves, or that I'll want to keep this on my shelves. And so yeah, I'm really glad that I read this. I gave it 4 stars. I love her writing. Like I said, I think she has such an incredible way of doing a lot with a little, and just making you get invested. Like, you get invested in the story, and I think my biggest problem was just like it did get repetitive for as short as it is, and I don't know, there was just something with it. It didn't quite hit 5 stars, but I still had a great time. The next book that I read, I can now tell you about because I actually reread Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. This is about his experience playing Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter series. I got this book for my sister for our April pick, and I wanted to reread it because I wanted to be able to annotate certain sections, especially the part with Snape and his cloak. And I really wanted to be able to annotate this just to make it more fun. I have read this one before, so this was a reread for me. And so I did get a reread in this month. It wasn't the one that I planned on, but I did get a reread in. But this one was a reread for me, and I read it a few years ago. Actually, this exact time a few years ago, and I thought it was really interesting. I love seeing his behind the scenes look into the Harry Potter series, and I loved it. I thought it was really good. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. So, I mean, it's his experiences, so you can't, like, rate it badly. But I thought his writing was really interesting. Like, I thought his writing was done really well and keeps you invested in it. And he tells the story like he's talking to you. And I really like that for a biography or memoir. And he wrote it to where it is. He's talking to you. He's kind of cracking jokes and talking about, you know, mistakes that he's made. And he'll say, "Oh, sorry, Mom, you're gonna hate this," but I really like that. I think it makes it to where you can connect with it that much more as a person, even though he is this celebrity that, like, everybody knows him as Malfoy. And so it talks about that, and I really had a good time with it. And if you love Harry Potter as much as we do, then I would highly recommend it because I thought it was just a really interesting take on his life so far. And yeah, I thought it was a great time. The next book I picked up was one that Orbit kindly sent to me, and that was The Trident and the Pearl. This is by Sarah K. L. Wilson. I gave this one 4 stars. I had a really good time with it. So this one is following, what was her name? Because it's weird. Corlys. She is the ruler of the Crocus Isles, and she is trying to stop a terrible storm that's going on at the very beginning of this book. And her husband has gone back out on the water to try and save people, and she goes up to ask the gods for help. And she asks them, and the one that answers is none other than Okeanos. And he says, "I'll stop the storm if you marry the first guy that steps onto this pier." And she's like, "But I'm already married." He's like, "But really? Are you sure of that?" And turns out she lost her husband in the storm, and now she has to marry the first guy that sets foot on her pier, and that is Oak, a fisherman. And she now wants revenge on the gods for taking her husband and ruining her life, because now she is a fisherman's wife and she has lost her power and her queendom and whatever. And so she wants revenge on Okeanos, and Oak is on his own quest that I'm not going to give you the details of. So this book, I thought it was really good. This book started out a little rocky. There were points in the writing that got a little odd, and she did spoil herself a little bit at one point in time. I did talk about this in my video, so if you want to watch it and hear my full thoughts. But she did spoil herself a little bit, and I was kind of irritated with that. But overall, by the end of this book, I really enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to see what the heck is going to happen next, because I feel like she covered a lot in the 400 and some odd pages of this book. So I gave it 4 stars, and I'm definitely going to continue. This is a debut author. It's her first novel, and I'm really glad that I read it. So thank you so much to Orbit for sending me this, and I'm really excited to continue on this series. The next book that I picked up was Nightshade and Oak. This is by Molly O'Neill. This was also in the same video that just went up this week, and that is my Orbit focused video. This is by Molly O'Neill. This is the same author as Green Teeth. I read Green Teeth last year, I think it was, and I loved it. I thought it was whimsical, I thought it was fun, and I had a great time. So I wanted to pick up Nightshade and Oak when it came out. This one is following Malt, the goddess of death, and she is out gathering souls after a big battle, and she comes across a woman, or I guess 3 women, in a grove. One is already dead, the other one is dying, and the other one is leaning over her, looking like she's praying. And so Malt goes to collect the soul of the woman who is dying, and somehow in doing so, she loses her powers. She loses her status as a goddess and becomes human. Now, Malt is having to try and figure out how the heck to get back to normal, and she ends up going along with, what is her name? I talked about this in the video a lot. What is her name? Bellis. So she ends up going along with Bellis, which Bellis is the woman who was praying over, who happened to be her sister's body, and trying to save her sister. And so Bellis is also wanting to go and find the goddess of the afterworld, or the god of the afterworld, and try and get her sister's soul back so that way she could try and save her sister. And so they go together, because Malt thinks that the god of the afterworld can help her get her powers back. So they end up going together to try and find him. And this book is following their journey. And I felt like this one was really good. It was not as good as Green Teeth, in my opinion. I felt like Green Teeth was more whimsical, more fun. This one was a bit more serious, and I still enjoyed it a lot. It was just more serious. It was a heavier book in general. So this one, it had so many different things going on. This book is not even 300 pages, and it had so many things going on, which I love that. However, my issue with this one was that I felt like she forgot certain things, and then she was like, oh yeah, I have to wrap this up. And it like happened all at the end, and I didn't like that. Otherwise, really enjoyed this book. The parts that are in the afterworld, I loved those sections of this book. She could have made this book entirely that, and I would have been okay with it. But overall, I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I love her writing. I think her writing is amazing. She does fantasy kind of like Sarah Beth Durst, that it's fantasy, or it's kind of a cozy fantasy and kind of not. It has that kind of vibe, but it's a lot higher stakes, and it definitely has high stakes in this, because we're looking for the soul of a sister, and we're looking for the powers of a goddess, and it's sapphic. So there's a relationship that forms between these 2 women. So I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. Like I said, I didn't think it was as good as Green Teeth, but it wasn't as fun as Green Teeth either, and so that's a big part of it. But I really enjoyed this. I liked their friendship, their budding friendship, and what later turned into a relationship between them. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I love her world building because it's very simple, but it also has a way of being really intricate at the same time. So it's kind of contradictory that way, but I loved it, and I thought it was great. So I gave this 4 stars. I'm really glad that I read it. And last but not least, the one and only book that I read for Alphabet Escapades. Now, if you haven't seen that video yet, I will link it somewhere in here to where you can go and watch that one. It's probably going to be what pops up at the end. So I did end up reading Fourth Wing for my Alphabet Escapades. I obviously got the letter Y, and I am so glad that I read this book. Okay, so I finished this last night between like 11:30 and midnight. I finished this book, and this book, I keep saying it over and over again, it's Divergent meets Eragon, and I loved it. I love the academic setting. I loved that she focuses so much more on the world building and the academic part of it rather than, and even our main character, Violet. She focuses so much more on Violet and what's going on with her than their relationship. And I love that, because I feel like with the romantasy books, the fantasy romance books, that you have to have that balance. The romance is great, and I love the romance in it, but you have to have the world building. You have to have the character building and everything else that goes along with fantasy world. You have to have that. Otherwise, it'll just fall flat. And I think she had a really great balance in this. There was tension, and I loved these characters, and her best friend pissed me off so bad, or her childhood best friend, I should say, pissed me off so bad. And I loved it. I love the friendships that she creates with all the other writers and the people in her quadrant. And I'm so excited to continue on with the next book in this series. And I'm so glad that I read it. So obviously I gave it 5 stars. And I was texting my sister throughout while I was reading it, which made it really fun. And so yeah, I love this. I give this 5 stars. So that is it. Those are the 8 books that I read during the month of March, plus a few that I wanted to spotlight from February. And so yeah. Have you read any of these? Have I inspired you to hopefully pick 1 or 2 of these up? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you so much for being here, hanging out with me for a little bit, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.